What's up? We got The Flash, Season 4, Episode 8, Crisis on Earth X, Part 3. So this episode starts off with Barry, Alex, Kara, Sarah, and the others all on Earth X. And Harry was right, it's a terrible place to come there. So they realize so Barry's like, hey, why don't I phase out of this? But they all realize that they have meta-dampening collars. But Sarah's like, why do we have meta-dampening collars? We're not meds. So then the evil version of Quentin shows up and is like, and recognizes Sarah, and recognizes Earth 1 Sarah, and is like, he has Sarah once, who was blinded by gayness and stuff. He murdered her, or distinguished all of that, and Sarah has to defend that she likes men and women. So they're about to be executed, and then evil Quentin puts a bag over all of his head because he notices that he looks like evil over. So they're about to kill them when they meet a guy who's also there for being gay. So they basically just blah. So someone blasts him, and it turns out to be Earth X Snart, and he's like, Snart, and he's like, I hate fire. I love Wentworth Miller. He's just so great. And then he runs over to whoever this guy is, and his name is Ray Till, or aka the Ray, because he glows up and flies into the sky. Okay, so meanwhile, back on Earth 1, Eobard Thawne Wells decides to, I love that name. I cannot believe I came up with that name in Season 1, and it's still 6 here. Eobard Thawne Wells decides to show up in his old Harrison Wells disguise, and decided to show up in his old wheelchair, and he says that he was stuck there 15 years, and he didn't like any of it, even though in Legend Season 2, the Matt Letcher version says that he missed Caitlin Cisco and their dynamic. I'm so confused on Eobard Thawne's character anymore, because we had Matt Letcher who said he liked working with them, but we also have this Thawne who said he hated it or didn't like it. It's so confusing. It's just so confusing. So they basically are like, hey, we're gonna use you and basically rip your heart out and put it into our evil Kara, so then she can go back to our Earth. So yeah, weird. Yeah. So meanwhile, back with on Earth X, they're in their base when they're like, hey, there's a dimensional portal that the Earth X unit are using to travel between Earths. It's like, wait a minute, we can use that to get home, but then General Wind decides to show up and says, nope, we're blowing it to sky high. And they're like, wait a minute, you're blowing it to Daniel Panabaker's movie? Okay, anyway, jokes aside from Daniel Panabaker's Sky High movie, they decide, he's like, when? And he's like, it's General Shot. And he's like, and then General Shot's like, why does Oliver look like the guy he's trying to murder? That was a really good joke. Good on you, Flash writers. So she's like, hey, maybe I can talk to him. And he's like, well, there's no changing his mind. And she's like, and then he's like, and then Leo starts like, you can let her try. So she's like, hey, I already told you, we're pulling the place up. And she's like, when he's like, his name is General Shot. And she's like, okay, General Shot, her sister is going to die. And on her Earth, Wynn would have done anything to protect Kara, even if it meant risking himself. So immediately he's just like, okay, my decision's final, but I'm gonna let you guys do this because this is a television show. This is a television show, so I'm going to let you guys do it, even though I just told you that I'm not going to let you do it. So he's like, I'm giving you 24 hours. Yeah. Now, that was a change of advice. Randomly. That was a weird change of advice from him. Weird change of... Right, so, yeah, so they have to get to, but it's ruled by evil Earthexers. So he's like, Arsenal would always say, execute the plan, make a plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the window, throw away the plan. And then the Leon's like, that is terrible advice. I always have a plan. I just love him. I just love him. I love how Barry's basically saying how his start would do it, and then he's saying how he would do it. He's like, he always has a plan, and Barry's like, our start would always say throw away the plan if it doesn't work. So it's just so good. I have to admire it. I know it's a crossover, but I have to admire how good, like, Wentworth Miller is. Like, he's such a good actor. Like, on Prison Break, he wasn't that good of an actor. He really smiled. But on here, he's just so good. He smiled once. So anyway. So meanwhile. Back with the other guys, back with the team that's trapped in the metahuman damping cell, Harry's annoying Cisco to death with his banging the ball, and Diana is like, are they always like this? And she's like, and Caitlin's like, so Diana's like, are they always like this? And she's like, yeah. So Iris and Felicity decide to shut all the power, basically, to save Kara, but that's when Eobard Thawne is like, turn it back, and then evil Dark Arrow's like, turn it back on, and he's like, you heard him, turn it back on, and she's like, Eobard, and he's like, man, the future's weird. He's like, Felicity, I've heard of a bunch of people, the Flash, Green Arrow, the League of Heroes, the Age of Heroes, but the future's never heard of you. So, gonna kill her, but then Kara's like, stop. I'll give myself up if you... I'll give myself up if you let him go. So meanwhile, back on Earth X. I don't know why it took me long to say that, but they're basically busting through the plan, and so yeah, so Martin and Jack decide to unfuse as Jack stops it, but then revs out the portal so they can go home. But Stein's about to do something. He gets shot, and all the episode ends with them all saying no. So this episode was really good. Like, knowing that Ray's from Earth 1, Wentworth Miller back as one of the Snarts, him saying that he always has a plan compared to Earth 1 Snarts, throw away the plans. If the plan doesn't work, throw it away. Idea. That was really good. That was really good. Really. So, yeah. I really like this episode. Yeah. So, next time we have the final episode of this crossover, The Legends of Tomorrow episode. Episode 8. Wait, no. Yeah. Episode 8. The Legends episode. I really am excited to see how this crossover ends, because this crossover, it's okay. It's not one of my favorites. Like I really like the one. I think my favorite so far has to be which one was my favorite? I think it was the Flash versus Arrow. I think that was really great because it was the first ever crossover between Barry and Oliver. Okay, I was going to put Legend of Today and Legend of Yesterday, but we all know how much I didn't like Felicity in that one. So, that's just, I liked it because it set up Legends of Tomorrow, but it set up Felicity's terrible character for that season. So, I can't put that as my favorite.